Today we're going to replace a kitchen faucet. This one is obviously pretty old and shouldn't take very much to remove it because it's so badly corroded. But sometimes you can have some trouble and you might need to take some extraordinary measures to get these off. The first thing we do is we're going to have to make sure we have shut-offs. And they are under the sink. There's one. There's the other. Now this one on the right is pretty corroded. The one on the left works. But I'm going to replace both of them, because these things, they get corroded and they don't work after a while. So whenever I'm replacing a faucet, if the shutoffs look a little bad, I usually just replace them. So to replace the shutoffs, we have to turn the water off to the whole house. So that'll be the first step. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to cut the pipe. We're going to use this tool. It's a pipe cutting tool. It's a small one, which we need because we're close to the wall. So the first thing we do is we put this pipe cutter on and we cut both of these pipes off so that we can put our new shutoff on. You screw the pipe cutter on and you turn it around. And then you tighten it up again with the tightening nut. Turn it some more. And you'll have to do this maybe 5 or 6 times. So I've cut both of these pipes off, and now I'm going to clean it up a little bit because it'll make it easier to get the new fitting over that. If it's cleaned off, there's a lot of corrosion on the pipe itself. It doesn't need to be super clean, not for like if you were sweating it, but just so that the majority of the buildup from water deposits and the like is removed. That's about all you really need to do. Here's our new shutoff. Separate the base. This is a compression shutoff. It's a 5/8. There's a little nut in here. We put that's a washer actually. This is a nut, goes on there. Then the washer goes on top. And that should slide down about a ½ inch or so. And you put the shutoff on. And you screw the nut up to the shutoff. And then you tighten. And it has to be quite tight. And we'll do the same thing to the other one. Now to tighten these things, I turn the shutoff into the on position with the shutoff handle facing up so that I can put a vice grip on the top. Then I use a locking plier on the bottom, because one has to be held while the other is turned. And you tighten them just so. After you have done this, the next thing is to turn on the water. And if there's any seepage, just tighten this a bit more. It should be quite tight. It requires a fair bit of strength to tighten that. Okay, so we have the shutoffs on in place and no leaks. That's good. Now the next thing we have to do, there are 2 nuts, which I'm going to show you up there. There's 4 actually. There's 2 holding the water line on, and there's 2 holding the faucet to the sink. The ones holding the faucet to the sink are plastic. They should be easy to get off. The ones holding the water line to the faucet are brass, and they're corroded, but I think they're going to be easy to get off. But sometimes they can be hard. To remove those nuts, you can do it with the locking pliers, but it's best to use a tool that's designed for it. It looks like this. It has a telescoping handle. It can be adjusted to different heights. It has a head that swivels, and it's specifically designed to hook on to those hard to get nuts, because they are in a very tight spot. They're up here in this area here between the sink and the wall. Very tight. I've done it with just a locking pliers, but after you've done it once, that way you will invest in one of these tools. This is the more expensive type of tool. They make a less expensive one. It costs about 20 bucks for the less expensive one. I think this one's about 30. Okay, so here is the nut that we have to take off. I've loosened it a little bit, so I know that it's going to come off without too much trouble. There's the one nut, and the other nut is the plastic one higher up. If you can see it there. Both of those have to come off. You have to take off this brass one at the bottom first. That releases the water line. And then that plastic one holds the faucet to the sink. So we have these two, and then on the other side over there we have the same situation. So we'll do that next. So the faucet has come off. It was not easy there. That last part, those plastic nuts did not want to come off, so I cut them off with an oscillating tool with a metal blade on it. Just took about two sides off of the plastic nut and came off, and then the faucet just came right up with it. So I did that from the bottom there. So that was a little bit tricky, but with these old faucets sometimes you run into that sort of thing. So the next thing I have to do is to clean up the holes around here. There's quite a bit of debris and mess around here to clean up. I caulk the back of this really well here so it doesn't continue to make the wall deteriorate. And then we'll be ready to install the new faucet. All we have to do. So I've caulked the back of the sink and cleaned it up as well as I can. I'll put this base plate in, and we feed these water lines through the hole. And then I have some nuts to screw on that come in the bag. They screw onto those long metal posts on either side of the faucet, underneath. This wing nut type, this long piece here goes on, and these nuts screw over the posts, and that holds the whole thing in place. And the directions that come with it are very straightforward. So we're going to do that. We won't be needing the supply lines that I purchased. These I won't be needing. So I'll hook this up. Okay, so I've got my nuts started on the bolt here, and I'm just going to hand thread it to get it tight. Pull it in, and do the same thing on the other side. And once they're both on there and I'll go outside, reposition the faucet to make sure it's in the right place, and then tighten it down with the final tightening. So I have my my faucet is positioned correctly. I have this gasket, plastic gasket down here. Faucet sitting on top of it properly. The nuts have been tightened, but not completely. Now I'm just going to go back down underneath the sink and retighten them, and try not to move that faucet while I'm doing that. This is a very tight spot here for working. I can barely get through it. It's so tight. But I'm not a real big person, so I was able to. I use a piece of plywood to lay on so that I don't kind of wreck my back on the toe kick laying across that. So that's just a kind of a little improvisation thing that I've done to save my back installing these things. Now I just have to tighten my nut here. Hot is usually on the left, cold is usually on the right. Take the nut off the top of the shut-off. We're not going to need that anymore. Won't need the washer that comes with it either, because there's a rubber gasket seal on this supply line. Line it up straight so that the threads don't cross, and tighten it as much as you can. Put your locking pliers, your channel lock pliers, I should say, on it, and tighten it the rest of the way. You don't want to over tighten these nuts that have rubber washers in them, because you can squeeze the washer too much and cause a leak. So that's it. I'm going to turn on this water now, and hopefully we won't get sprayed. There's the hot, and there's the cold. And let's go up top and see if everything works. Now it's a good idea to take your aerator off, because there could be some debris in the line, and that'll clog up your aerator. And you have water, hot and cold. Put the aerator back on. That goes in there, I think. Okay, so I put my aerator back together. This little part goes in there, and that screws back on. There's a rubber washer there, make sure that's still there. And we have water. So that's a very basic installation. No sprayer involved. It's a little tight because of the access and the corrosion on the old one, but the principles are basically the same for most of them. I will be making another video to show an installation in a newer type of situation that has a sprayer, and that will be coming up soon.